shoot. Pullback, step back three. Bottom!
The handoff. Jones for the tie. Oh, he's fouled! And one! He's still loose. Doherty the heave. Oh, my God!
Southern Utah.
Southern Utah is going to do something they've never done. Go to the NCAA tournament.
What's up, everybody? It's another episode of the Straight Out Whack podcast. I mentioned today that I was going to record a podcast episode where I was going to talk about some things. And it's funny that this happens this week as we are about, 4 days away from tip-off of the 2023-24 season. And what's also interesting is that we have some fans that their schools aren't even in the WAC anymore chiming in on some tweets that I put out about games on opening night. So it's just an interesting time. I was watching the college basketball experience, the WAC preview with Colby Dant, and I thought to myself, this is a great time to record a podcast episode. He struggled to pronounce names correctly, which is fine. I'm not going to hold that against anybody else. There's a lot of talk about GCU and how they and California Baptist need to get a football team. Sorry, Colby, I don't think that's going to happen. Neither team wants that. They have some uniqueness without having a football team and competing against other schools around them. Plus, the Big West, most of those schools don't have football in the Big West Conference. So CBU doesn't see that benefit. GCU, same thing. They don't need football to have the resources that they do. So while football, drives a lot, some schools just don't want that. There's a uniqueness that they have. Just to throw that out there. But we've seen the last couple weeks between the secret reactions to secret scrimmages, reactions to exhibition games. We'll call them overreactions, right? It's just amazing to me in games that don't matter, games where coaches are trying things out, games against, let's be real, high school junior varsity teams. I mean, that's not the case for Illinois, Kansas. But when you're playing, I believe it was Embry-Riddle on Wednesday night that GCU played. I believe Tarleton played another team that was an NAI school. Guys, stop overreacting to those games. Like, they're just to get feet wet. It doesn't matter if a guy scores 25 points in that game. That doesn't mean he's going to go average 25 points per game a night when the regular season starts. Like, let's temper expectations. This is like overreacting to NFL preseason games or spring training games. Like, just temper the expectations. Now, is it cool to see a team put up over 100 points in a game? Absolutely, like Tarleton did, and have Ja'Cory Smith go for 30. Sure, that's great, but doing it against that type of competition doesn't show us anything. Like, it shows that maybe there's potential, but it does not show us that that's what they're going to be like night in and night out. I'm sorry, that it just doesn't. Okay, the secret scrimmage stuff, we don't know what goes on in those. Okay, we don't. From what I've been told, sometimes you play 2 10-minute halves just to figure out some things offensively, defensively, try new defenses, try things. Those are just to play against or to work out and practice against somebody that's not your own squad. That's why they do them. Nothing more, nothing less, period. Is to get your feet wet against somebody that is not your own team. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm old school. I just don't believe in overreacting to those things. Not, to say that somebody's going to have this big, gigantic season or a team's going to be top 25 or a team's going to be this good because they won a scrimmage. They won a scrimmage. Or, I'm sorry, guys. I get on this rant about that because it's just nuts. We don't know what's going to happen, okay? I know that there was a tweet put out that, GCU has top 25. I'll read it about it. That GCU is going to be special this year, top 25 special, mark my words. Mid-Major Madness tweeted that out today. Is there potential? Sure. Do we know that's going to happen? Like, could it happen? Maybe. But let me spell this out for you. GCU hosts San Diego State, right, in December. The only other Power 5 games or even upper echelon games that they may have, one is against San Francisco in Phoenix, okay? And then they will play either DePaul or South Carolina. So you get a decent WCC team that may compete, won't win the WCC because Gonzaga and St. Mary's are there. And then you get a bottom tier Big East team in DePaul or a bottom tier SEC school in South Carolina. Those are the only potential quality games on the schedule for the Lopes. Nothing against the schedule. Like, it's awesome that you get the national runner-up in San Diego State to come to GC Arena to return a home game that should have happened a couple years ago. But outside of that, the opportunities to really make a statement in your non-conference schedule are not there. Okay? Like, it's just not. And so to say that they're going to be a top 25 team, that's a bit of a stretch, okay? And I say that with all due respect to GCU because they're my favorite to win the WAC. I think they're everybody's favorite to win the WAC with all they have come back. But let me share this with you. Southeast Missouri on opening night, Northern Arizona, San Francisco, DePaul or South Carolina, North Dakota State. They get San Diego State number 17 on December 5th. They go to Liberty on December 9th. That's a quality game. Sam Houston, they were good last year. We don't know what they're going to be this year under Chris Mudge. We'll see. And Louisiana Tech. That's their non-conference schedule. Tell me what games are going to move the needle outside of that San Diego State game. Here's the thing. GCU has the potential to be, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9-1, maybe 10-0 in WAC in non-conference play. If they are 10-0, and technically we'll say 12-0 with the fact that they have UTRGV and UT Arlington in the middle of that non-conference slate, as WAC opponents. So let's say 12-0 when January 4th rolls around and they have to go to Southern Utah and Utah Tech, to really tip off WAC play. Maybe there's talk about them being in the top 25, maybe. But they just don't have enough opportunities against quad 1, quad 2 opponents to get into that discussion. They'll probably get votes at some point, but they have to beat San Diego State. That's the key. They have to beat San Diego State, and they have to win all the other games that they're most likely going to be favored in, all of them. Every game this year, except for maybe that San Diego State game, they're going to be favored. Plain and simple. So that's how they can get in the top 25. Potentially. I'm not saying it will happen, but that's how they can do it. Is there potential for this GCU team to be very, very special? Absolutely. We will discuss that, as the season gets going. With Ray Harrison, the WAC tournament MVP back. Javon Blackshear didn't play in that exhibition game, which is smart. Have him ready for that season opener on Monday. Ty and Grant Foster had a big night. But again, it was against a high school JV squad. We'll just say that. There was a little rust for GCU to start off. Then they finally got going. But I think we have to be realistic that they could potentially break the top 25, but it's going to take a lot of things to happen, period, including a win over San Diego State on December 5th. So we'll temper that expectation right now. If you remember, there was a decision, a vote that came out last week on the NIT, where no longer will conference regular season champions who win their conference tournament, or who don't win their conference tournament, get an automatic berth to the NIT. Like some have said, if this had been in place last year, Utah Valley would not have most likely not been able, not have played in the NIT. Sam Houston, maybe, but most likely not. Uh, People will say the NIT is not that big. It's not a big of a deal. This, that, and the other. And well, that may be true. It's not as big as the NCAA tournament, sure, but people don't realize the NIT was the national tournament before the NCAA tournament began. Right? That was the tournament that every team went to play for national championship. Was the NIT. With that being said, I don't think this vote is beneficial at all. And I think the NCAA needs to walk it back at some point, as soon as possible. I mean, should the regular season champion and conferences win their conference tournament? Sure. Sometimes it doesn't happen. I mean, just look at Utah Valley from last year. They won 25 games, but they couldn't get that 26th win. They couldn't. How ironic is it that they led by 26 points against Southern Utah late in the second half, or I should say early in the second half, and couldn't win that semifinal game against a rival, in-state rival, to get that 26th win that would have sent them to the WAC tournament championship game. Pretty ironic. Anyways, but why would you punish a team that wins their regular season championship by saying we're not going to give you an automatic berth if you don't win because, well, we want more money or we want a 16 and 15 ACC school who doesn't belong there to begin with. Here's the other ironic part about this. Utah Valley beat New Mexico on the road. They beat Colorado on the road. And they beat Cincinnati, who is now part of the Big 12, to get to the NIT Final Four. And 3 of the 4 teams in the NIT Final Four were from mid-major conferences. How do you say to mid-majors, no, we're not going to let you in if you don't win your conference tournament? Yeah, we'll let you go, 18-2 in regular season play, but because you don't win 2 or 3 games in a 4-day span, we're not going to give you that berth. We're going to give it to a team that doesn't deserve it, period. The discussion is that this choice was made because they're trying to combat some plan by Fox Sports, who wanted to run a tournament with the power conferences, teams that didn't make the NCAA tournament. Kind of like an NIT invitational type tournament for the power teams that don't make the NCAA tournament. I don't understand it. Like, people want to see mid-majors upset power teams. They want to see that potential. They want to see that Cinderella story. I mean, Utah Valley, and people say I'm biased. No, it was a great story last year. They smoked New Mexico in the pit. They smoked Colorado in Boulder. That game against Cincinnati, they got to host an NIT game in a packed UCCU center on national television. What schools, why would you punish mid-majors that have that opportunity? It doesn't make sense. I get money drives everything, but I'm sorry, more people would tune into a Utah Valley beating a Cincinnati than they will Podunk DePaul beating a Podunk South Carolina. That's what you're telling people, that you'd rather have that game with 2 bad teams than a game with a good team against maybe a semi-quality opponent. It just doesn't make sense, and it's wrong. And let Fox do their thing. If you were to hold an NIT with some of the power conference teams that you could get, plus the mid-majors, I think you'd have better ratings, period. I know, like, some of people on Twitter say, we're discussing the NIT. Yeah, we are. Because what they don't understand is for mid-majors, the NIT is a big-time thing because how many mid-majors these days get at-large berths to the NCAA tournament? We've already seen that trend where power conferences are pushing out, or the committees are pushing out mid-majors who deserve to be in the NCAA tournament for really bad power conference teams. Okay. I mean, FAU, San Diego State, they showed last year that mid-majors deserve to be there, right? It's just one of those things. Okay. Um, then we had Farley Dickinson beat Purdue in the NCAA tournament last year. Like, that's what people want to see. So I really, really hope that they run this back and make the change that they need to make. Okay. Uh, it's just one of those things. It's special for mid majors. They need to understand that. And they need to understand that Cinderella stories can drive ratings. And Utah Valley helped those ratings last year. Plain and simple. Let's talk about this opening week. We'll talk about opening night. We'll get to opening week as we, let's do some housekeeping real quick. Congratulations to Texas Rangers on winning their first World Series. I know there's a lot of Rangers fans that are Whack Hoops followers, Whack Hoops Nation's followers. So if you want, get your championship gear. It'll be in the description below. Um, it's good stuff. I'm a Cubs fan, so I understand the pain of not winning World Series for a long, 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 long time. Fortunately, in 2016, they were able to do that. Um, I will applaud the Rangers for beating the team that basically knocked the Cubs out of the playoff race in the Diamondbacks. It was a great run by the Diamondbacks. But yeah, also along those lines, I know a couple coaches have asked me where they get a hat like this or the other hat that I have. We do have a shop that you can go to. I will put the link to that in the description below as well. So make sure you get your Whack Hoops gear. Show some support for the brand as we go along covering this great conference, talking hoops all season. We're also make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. I mentioned that hopefully we get to 200 subscribers by tip off on Monday. If we do, we will have a drawing. 2 people will win all session tickets to the WAC tournament in March in Las Vegas at Orleans Arena. So make sure you subscribe to it. We also are going to bring back the WAC wager. We're going to talk about the lines for each game, especially against Division I opponents. So Monday morning, we will have the first episode of the 2023-24 season WAC wager episode. So be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Spotify. We're all over the place. So be sure to follow us, subscribe to us, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are, so that you get those updates, so you can keep track, so we can, keep this brand growing. It has grown so much, and I appreciate it and wanted to let everybody know. Just be sure to follow us. And like I said, get your Whack Hoops gear at the link in the description, as well as if you're a Rangers fan, boom, get your championship gear now. Anyways, let's look ahead to opening night. Like I said, some fans, I don't even know if I want to call them fans. Some people have tweeted at me about the list of 5 games that I put out for opening night. There were some big games around the WAC. Southeast Missouri State at Grand Canyon obviously jumped out for some. Oh, it's not a big game because Southeast Missouri has this KenPom ranking, or they were this, or they were this. Listen, for WAC purposes, for WAC hoops purposes, any game against a Division I opponent is big. Period. It doesn't matter what that opponent's KenPom ranking is or what their net ranking is. It's big for a couple of reasons. First off, the WAC is trying to move up in the KenPom rankings, right? They were 11th in 2022-23. Right now, as it stands in 2023-24, as we get ready to start, they are 13th. They are behind Conference USA, Missouri Valley Conference, the A10, West Coast, Mountain West. So they're there. They're in the mix. So any win against a Division I opponent is big for the WAC. So that's why it's big. Okay. Second off, Southeast Missouri was a tournament team last year. They won the Ohio Valley Conference. GCU went on a crazy run between Michelob Ultra Arena and Orleans Arena to win the WAC tournament and go to the NCAA tournament. So 2 NCAA tournament teams going up against each other. Why isn't that big? That's big. It doesn't matter what their record was. They both earned their way to the NCAA tournament last year. The third one is the fact that it affects resume seeding system. Yeah, it's opening night, but it'll affect resume seeding system. So let's take some examples. SFA last year loses to Alcorn State and Northwestern State at home. That was a huge hit on their resume seeding points. If somehow, I say if, as it's just a huge if, because I think GCU is probably going to be a 15, 20-point favorite on opening night. If Southeast Missouri beats GCU, that will be a significant hit on the Lopes in terms of their resume seeding system. And the reason for that is they don't have enough opportunities down throughout their non-conference schedule and into conference play to override what they could lose. They could probably lose, I'd probably say 0.8, 0.85 points if they were to lose at home to Southeast Missouri State. That's how important it is. That's how big it is. Because they want to be the number 1 seed. They want to, if they win the WAC regular season, they want to be that number 1 seed. They don't want to be what happened to Utah Valley last year, where it was like a half a point, not even a half a point behind Sam Houston that kept them from being the 1 seed. So that's why it's big. Okay. The other thing is, it's another statement for the WAC. Hey, we're one of the best mid-major conferences in the country, period. That's why it's big. It's just like Southern Utah at Cal State Bakersfield. People say, well, that's not a big game. Sure it is. Okay. 1, it's against a Big West. 2, it's against a former WAC foe. 3, Southern Utah has a new head coach and almost an entirely new roster. Plus, they're playing on the road. Road wins get more points than home wins in this resume seeding system. So Rob Jeter, and his crew, if they get a win over the Roadrunners, that's big. Like that's just, there's just so many storylines that people don't understand. Obviously, we'll say the Tarleton at Virginia, ACU at Oklahoma State games are the biggest games. Sure, because if you upset either one of those games, because neither team's gonna be favored, okay, on the road against a power conference team, no, they're not gonna be favored at all. You get that upset, kind of like Sam Houston did last year at Oklahoma to open the season, or Utah Valley got over Oregon, or CBU got over Washington. Those are big wins, obviously. I kind of hold those in less esteem than the other ones against other mid-majors, just because there's no expectation for a WAC school going into those games against power conferences. The expectation by most is that they won't win. As Tarleton showed that they can handle playing against power conferences, absolutely. ACU, same thing. But just to temper expectations, there's no expectation in those games. You're hoping that they go in and compete, make things interesting, and if the upset happens, awesome. It is a great day for the WAC, period. But those aren't games you're expected to win. Games against Southeast Missouri, games against CSU Bakersfield, even a game that UT Arlington has on opening night against Oral Roberts at College Park Center, you got to win those games. Those are games you're expected to win. Those are games against similar competition that will impact the WAC significantly. So win those games, period. That's the big thing about it. People don't understand that that's what the focus should be. Okay, let's hope we go get an upset. Let's go work hard. Let's go, play our game and do what we do and see if we can pull off the upset against power conference teams. But let's win the games that we should be winning. That's the big thing. Last year, Utah Valley lost on a buzzer beater at Wake Forest. Probably should have won the game. And then they lose to Morgan State in Jamaica a couple days later. That killed their 1 seed for the WAC tournament. SFA, we've talked about them. They had a decent season, but they lose at home to Alcorn State and Northwestern State, games they weren't supposed to lose. I know the injuries and all that stuff went on in Nacogdoches, but don't lose the games you're not supposed to. CBU lost to Cal Poly last year. Don't lose those games. Plain and simple. That's why these games are big. I could have put the games against non-D1s, but those games don't matter. Those games are get your feet wet, get your feet under you, and get some momentum as you get into the rest of the week. So that's why I put those games as big games on opening night for the WAC. If you don't like that, that's fine. I know some fan bases hate whenever anybody talks about GCU, so I get it. Whatever. But think outside the box and outside of your hatred for one school to see why those games are big for the WAC. Period. Okay. The other thing is, I'm looking forward to it. The WAC is right behind CUSA. Conference USA has a significant point advantage right now. I believe I'm looking at its points. It's almost 1.39 points ahead of the WAC in the preseason KenPom rankings right now. There are 20 games between the WAC and Conference USA coming up. Thursday, December 9th, or not. I shouldn't be getting into December already. November 9th, I'll be at one of them when Utah Valley heads to Sam Houston, a place where Utah Valley has never. So Sam Houston's never beaten Utah Valley. I know I'm going to jinx Utah Valley by saying that, but it's true. 2 years ago, Utah Valley went down there, came back, and beat the Bearcats in Huntsville. The Bearcats just couldn't hit a shot late in the game, and Fardell Zamak and the Wolverines walked out a winner. Last year in Orem, Utah Valley just destroyed the Bearcats on opening night of WAC play. So we'll see what happens this year. A lot of new faces in Orem, new faces in Huntsville, new head coach in Chris Mudge for the Bearcats. So that'll be an interesting game to start. We will go from there. But yeah, 20 games in this Conference USA WAC situation. I say that it's 18 in the Conference USA WAC Alliance, 9 teams in each conference playing 2 games each, and then Stephen F. Austin and Grand Canyon both play Louisiana Tech. So we will see what happens in that regard and how we go forward. But it should be a fun season, guys. Like I said, subscribe to the channel, the YouTube channel. Make sure you follow WAC Hoops Digest or WAC Hoops Nation, on all the social media platforms: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or X, I guess you could say. And check out, you get your WAC Hoops gear, like I said, link in the description. Guys, it's going to be a fun season. Make sure you tune in to WAC Wager. We're going to have that on a daily basis for when we have games around the WAC. And looking forward to an exciting 2023-24 season. Everybody enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Oh, one last thing, too. We will be putting out the WAC Hoops Nation Players of the Year on the men's and women's side, our all WAC teams that myself and our contributors voted on, and our preseason polls Friday. So be on the lookout for that. Anyways, like I said, enjoy the rest of your Throwback Thursday.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Outta WAC podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow us on Twitter at WAC Hoops Digest and Facebook under WAC Hoops Digest for all your WAC Hoops news and information.